Today, we're going to talk about the family. Now, we understand that all families look different, right? But for learning English sake, we're just going to focus on the traditional family, starting with a mom and a dad. Or sometimes referred to as mother and father. Now, they're typically married, and so if the mother would be the wife to the husband would be the father, and he's married to the wife or the mother. Now, they have children. If they're a boy, they're a son. If they're a girl, they're a daughter. Now, their relationship together would be siblings or brother and sister. So, let's recap. You have the mother and the father, or the mom and dad, who are husband and wife, and you have the son and the daughter. Now, they're brother and sister, or siblings. Now, in the case of divorce, if the parents separate and the mom marries another man, that man would be considered your stepfather. Now, if he also has children that he's bringing to the marriage, they would be considered your stepbrothers or stepsisters, or as a group, your step-siblings. Now, if the father doesn't remarry, he'll be referred to as a single parent. But if he does remarry, that lady will then become your stepmother, and if she has children, they will be called your stepbrothers or stepsisters, or as a group, your step-siblings. When you get married, you're welcoming more people into the family. Like the parents of my wife, they're called my in-laws because I'm related to them in the law because of our marriage license. So my mother-in-law is my wife's mother. My father-in-law is my wife's father. And of course, my brothers and sisters-in-law, they are my wife's brothers and sisters. But because we're married, I call them my in-laws. Let's recap. My mother-in-law is my wife's mother. My father-in-law is my wife's father. My wife's sister is my sister-in-law. And my wife's brother, well, he's my brother-in-law. Now, when your children get married, if your daughter marries a young man, he will be considered your son-in-law. Now, if your son marries a girl, well, guess what she'll be called? Your daughter-in-law. You see how that works? So you simply take the same name, son or daughter, and simply add the word in-law. Daughter-in-law, son-in-law. Now, let's talk about the extended family members. You know, the people that are still related to you but aren't part of the nuclear family, like the grandparents. Who are the grandparents? Well, they would be your parents' parents. For instance, your mother's mother would be considered your grandma or grandmother, and your mother's father would be considered your grandpa or your grandfather. So is it on your father's side. His mother would be your grandma or grandmother, and his father would be your grandfather or grandpa. Now, if you take that up one more generation, your grandpa's father would be your great-grandpa, or your grandfather's mother would be considered your great-grandma or your great-grandmother. You see how that works? And as the generations go, they keep adding a great in front of the other great. Great, great, great. Next, we have your parents' siblings, or your parents' brothers and sisters. For instance, your father's brother would be considered your uncle. Your father's sister would be considered your aunt. And their children would be considered your cousins. So, let me recap that. Your father's brother would be considered your uncle. Your father's sister would be considered your aunt. And their children would be considered your cousins. So, there you have it, the basic breakdown on the family in English. Now, as we mentioned earlier, your family may look a little different than what we described, and that's okay. But for the sake of learning English, we hope that you've enjoyed this here today. In fact, we encourage you to practice your English every single day. And of course, one of the greatest tools that you can use to learn English is the #1 highest rated English learning app in the world. We're talking about fluentworlds. It's available now on the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store. This is Nathan Osmond saying, go practice that English. Find the voice in the crowd and